We're going to start in one place, the place that you were there, the T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada, last night. Promoter Tom Brown, I'm only joking, Matty. Terence Crawford, 9th round knockout over Errol Spence, IBF, WBA, WBC, and WBO titles were all on the line. The only criticism I have of Crawford after that fight, Andy, is why didn't he finish Spence earlier? The absolute state of that guy. Before the fight, Sean Porter said, Spence is really good at fighting hurt. He's good at fighting when someone hurts him. Well, I'll tell you what, he needed to be last night because he looked like he just got out of that car crash. By about round 3, Wellington was pulling for Crawford to just put him out of his misery. Finish him already, because what was transpiring after 3 or 4 rounds was a one-sided massacre.
So Mr. Wellington did what I did the night that Frotch beat Booty when I was live in attendance. I totally switched sides during that fight, like a total.
Just finish him, for
like
goodness'
a total
sake.
fence jumper, eh? Oh, it was tremendous stuff. As you say, mate, that between the third or the fourth round had finished. It was like his mugshot, and when he was lying in the hospital, that's how bad Spence looked. His eyes were swollen, looked like they were kind of half shut, bleeding from the nose. The lips began to swell up in that as well. It was a terrible beating. It's about the best I can say. I picked Crawford last week, but I didn't really expect. Well, I didn't expect Spence to win, sorry, but I didn't expect him to lose in the manner in which he did. I just did not expect him to be dominated like that. I didn't expect it to be cagey early doors like what happened in the first round. I expected that from about the first 2 or 3 rounds. And obviously, that just totally flipped when Crawford dropped him in round 2. He's got up. He's a prideful man, isn't he? He's got to try and fight back. And then obviously, by about the 4th, it looked like every jab that Crawford threw, so every time Crawford landed a jab, it rocked Spence for everything. There were times even Spence was biting on feints. Crawford was just slipping too good with the feet. He was missing straight jabs. He was way to the side by the time Spence was getting his jab off. He was just too slow. You talk about Inoue being razor sharp there. So was Crawford, mate. He was that quick. His punches were that sharp. He could have shaved himself in the mirror last night. It was absolutely that good. One of the great performances that you'll see, and you'll have your detractors. You'll have people say about the weight cut and the car accident maybe finally catching up with him, but he took the fight. He knew what he was getting himself into. That's Spence, that is, and he agreed to the weight. He made the weight fair play to him. And look, you got to hang your hat to him actually, because he could have easily took a knee and just seen it out after that, and just took the 10 count. But he didn't. He tried to fight back. Even after the 7th round when he got dropped twice, that counter right hook, that he threw off the ropes, Crawford, was absolutely sweet. In between, I think it was Spence throwing a straight left hand, possibly. He's caught him right through the middle with that shot. Fucking beautiful. And then obviously he's caught him again at the end of the round in that as well. Really, there was probably no need for an 8th round by that point, actually. And you can certainly say there was no need for a 9th round. You would hope Spence would probably call it a day after that last night, but I don't think he will. Again, obviously, he's got the rematch to think about. He's got 30 days to make a decision on that. He's kind of held hostage to the fact that Crawford can call the shots on the weight, but we'll need to wait and see. But I'd like to see him retire, because that's the type of beating there last night that can obviously just end whatever's left.
Look at the picture on the screen. He turned him into Maurice Hooker, Andy.
I mean, look at that. Pretty bad. I mean, I've seen a couple of other still pictures on that as well, with his face getting contorted, and you can see the face and during some of the slow motion replays. I don't know what Fiji's watched, but Showtime are doing that close up replay that they do. Some of those shots, but you can see it. They would snapping the head back, and the blood coming out the nostrils or out the mouth, and yeah, it was just one of those performances. It was great to see, great to be in this era to actually see a performance like that, because we all felt 50-50. Loads were jumping on the fence. We don't know yet. We think maybe Spence, he's good fighting hurt. He'll come down the stretch. Crawford's too good, too slick, just too strong. There were a lot of variables going into the fight, and then he's just made it look like he's made a pound for pound ranked fighter by many people look like a complete novice, look a complete amateur. That's what he's made him look like there, and he isn't. That's just simple fact as well. He's not an amateur. He's not a poor fighter. Crawford just made him look that way, and some special fighters can do that. And I love them bamming up Charlo, who I kept an eye on during that. I've watched the fight 3 times, and I've watched Charlo each time during that fight, and he just sits there all stoic, barely moving, just watching what's unfolding in front of him, and that is an absolute ass kicking. Which, by the way, Spence called as the prophet that he is. A couple of weeks back, when he says he got asked by Jim Gray, "How do you see this fight turning out?" It's going to be one-sided ass kicking. Well, you got that right, son, because that's exactly what it was, an absolute one-sided ass kicking that nobody could have foreseen coming. Nobody. I mean, I think everybody's in shock as to how that's went. So we'll leave the conspiracy theories to other people at this point, like the LDBC, who are going off on one today.
Anthony Crolla.
Anthony Crolla and all that as well, aye. But incredible performance. I mean, there's so much more I can add, but I know Matty was here live, so I'll let him add his thoughts in here.
Absolutely. Just before he does so, Slappy Gilmore's thrown in a tenner. He says, Terence the Invincible, absolutely. Right, Matty, I know you're desperate to get stuck in, so I'm going to have my say first of all, and then let you loose on me. I thought it was going to be a tough fight. We all know I thought Errol Spence was going to win. I got it badly wrong. Full props to Crawford. This is the win his record needed. He's the king of a generation, no doubt, absolutely. 2-time undisputed champion. Spence was reaching in. He couldn't handle the speed. He couldn't handle the accuracy. In my defense, I always said I only ever had one complaint about Terence Crawford. There was no doubt in his ability, his tenacity, skill set, his power. I always said there was a lack of names on his record, which stemmed from his hard-headedness, not joining the PBC. That's what I would have liked to have seen. He stayed at top rank for too long. I wanted to see him test those skills, those pound-for-pound skills against the very best names, not faded versions. But he went over to the PBC last night and took out the biggest name of them all, and there's nothing more for me to say.
Steve, it was incredible to be there last night. Having gone to the Avon Nation fight and experienced that Omaha fight atmosphere, I experienced it again in Las Vegas last night. They came out like mad for Terence Crawford. Some people thought it was about a 50-50 split in the crowd. I'd say it probably more 60-40, maybe a little more heavy towards Bud. The number of people you ran into through any random casino who were there from Omaha, just nuts. I mean, they love this guy, and he loves them back. And that's why we were able to get such an incredible atmosphere last night. And it started at the weigh-in. Bud was having fun with them. You could just, there was something about this week, Steve, that some people get shut out of the top things for various reasons, this, that, and the other. And the top rank PBC stuff aside, it's, the idea is, you got a big money maker, just going across the road and throwing him in with Terence Crawford. I mean, that's a bad business plan, So he worked his way up the ladder with titles. I was going back through some numbers, Steve. The fight with Sean Porter only did like 135,000 pay-per-view buys.
Mm-hmm.
Victor Postol, about 50,000. So it's been this incredibly slow grind to get to this point in time.
Why was that? Why do you think that? Why so low?
I'd like to say it's a combination of things, Steve. Maybe he was a little bit stubborn when it came to when he should have jumped across the street and things like that. But it also falls on the promoters too. It was not impossible for Bob or Todd at Top Rank to call up over to Al Heyman's office and say, hey, we're looking at a couple of potential fights that might be good for the fans. What do you think about these? And vice versa. They this is what they choose. They try to monopolize, and actually I had an interesting thought about that, and I'd like to get into that later, but to the fight. So Crawford, in the ring entrance with Eminem, just fantastic, right? It was, and there was this incredible focused look on his face. The way in, he was dancing, singing, having a good ass time. He walked into this fight, and there was this incredible sense of focus about him. And you can just tell that this guy has tunnel vision when it's fight time. So the first bell rings, real smooth first round. Spence probably took it, right, Steve? Just not a whole lot of activity.
Yeah.
And then it starts heating up a little bit in the second round. And I'm in a very, very heavy Spence section of what is a pretty pro-Crawford crowd. And, Errol was doing pretty good in that round, pushing him back at times. And then Bud landed that left-right combo there and just sent him down. And when Errol was on his ass, there was a look on his face that I have never seen before. And the fight was over then. Even though he came back and he had a decent third round, I think maybe it was the fifth he might have said he could have had an argument with, even though some of the judges only gave him one round in the fight. But he just ran into this focused wrecking machine who has every shot in the book. His defense is tight. He'll throw with you. He will push you back. He will counter you. The full package. And round after round, as we're getting towards that seventh round, he just starts landing heavier and heavier. Everybody, Dr. FMG really thought that the story of this fight, might have been Spence's pressure and jab. Nah, the story of the fight was Bud's jab probably busting him up.
Dr. FMG, so stupid, isn't he, thinking that?
I think he is a very, very wise man, but going against Bud is very cuck-like. Yeah, so I think FMG in this situation might stand for fuck my girlfriend. Love you, Doc. Love you, Doc. So the seventh round comes, and Crawford catches him with that uppercut up against the ropes, and the Spence crowd, they're cheering because, Spence is having some decent, doing some decent work to the body, kind of moving him around a bit. Then Bud just lands that uppercut. And it was basically, it was all downhill from there. I think Bud kind of stepped off the gas in the eighth. Maybe after that second knockdown, Spence wasn't too hurt, but I mean, Doc could have probably pulled the plug at that point in time. In my very pro Spence area over there, man, they were loud, Steve, and they were saying, as he's working the body, pushing Bud back, at times they're yelling, saying, yeah, got to do that for 6 more rounds. 6 more rounds. Can you take it? All sorts of shit like that. And then Bud drops him for the second time at the end of the seventh round. In my very pro Spence section of the crowd, I yell out, "Man down! Man down!" this big black gal behind me just starts busting out. He around like, "You like that one?" She's like, "Oh yeah, baby, that was good." So it was really good, and you gotta love the Spence people there behind him.
I've loved it. If you got pimp slapped later, that'd been fucking.
Oh, I pissed off a couple people for sure, but they couldn't say shit, man. They were yelling their shit too. Eighth round, I think Bud just kind of worked him over, took a little bit of a break to get his gas together, and then ninth round just put him on him. Good stoppage by Harvey Doc, who I was fortunate enough to meet after the fight as well. Good man. I like Harvey. But it was incredible to see that happen. Bud's emotions when he was in that post-fight interview, I hope you guys understand where that was coming from, that he had felt dismissed and held back from opportunity for so long. And here he was, and he showed up almost like no one has ever showed up before on this kind of stage, and completely dominated a pound-for-pound fighter. Absolutely dominated him. And I feel for Spence. It could be a rough road back for him. I don't know what's next. I don't have much interest in a rematch. It could be at a higher weight. Maybe they'd even catch weighted at 150 or something. But I just don't see that. Charlo's got to go fight Canelo apparently. Something that wandered into my mind, Steve, is I'd like to potentially see Crawford take on Tim Tszyu. I think that's Tim's a big boy, I mean, he might not be, nearly as experienced, but that's another tall test, going up another division. And who knows, they might make Tszyu some sort of full champion by then with Charlo out fucking off at 168, right?
Yeah, they should do.
And just leave the Spence fight behind. And if Errol can get something together, maybe they can rematch again down the road. But I see very little purpose in it. It was just incredible. And I had a chance to talk to some boxing folks, some writers, some judges, et cetera, after the fight, in a really enjoyable setting. And I asked them, because this is something that occurred to me during the fight. I brought it to the Nutters' attention too. And I said, do you believe that Terence Crawford is the most complete fighter since Marvin Hagler? and it kind of took them back. But not a single one of them could disagree. And they even embellished on the point that I made there, seeing it in person. He is a tremendous fighter. There's some sort of intangible in him, something that drives him, that makes everything he does exponentially better. He's not the fastest, he's not the biggest, but God damn it, he just wants it more than you do at the end of the day. And it's going to take a very, very special fighter to take out Bud Crawford. And if he was to retire today, I would have no problems with it. He's 35 years old. He just got a great paycheck. Hey, right off into the sunset. He'd be a top 50 all-time great fighter at this point in time. No argument. No argument. He's one of the best. And I am so proud to have been there to see this moment and enjoy it with a good friend and Donnie. It was tremendous. And I really hope that people give Bud his props right now, because I hate to break it to you guys, but Bud Crawford is better than Floyd Mayweather ever was.
Oh, you had to spoil it at the end there, didn't they? You're getting as bad as Seb, Matty. I'm going to have to put a little soundtrack to the back now, but you did make a lot of good points there.
He has
Floyd
fought
would have
his...
been fuming last night, actually, with that result.
Bud has fought his entire career, other than, sometimes at lightweight when I think he was struggling a bit to make the weight, but specifically 140 and 147. He fights the way Floyd fought at 130 and 135. And I thought Pretty Boy was the best version of Floyd. And I just think Bud has that, and he can take it up another weight class potentially too. This is one of the most incredible fucking fighters of the last 50 years. He's unbelievable. Fuck off.
Feeding the ducks, Mike, he was asking for, right? Matty makes a compelling case. We had a question from Take Ames coming earlier along those kind of lines, so I will throw it out to the panel. First of all, let's throw this out to the panel. Ricky Graville has thrown in $4.99. MTK Enforcer Richard Graville has thrown in $4.99. Rapping Rob Kelly's on the call with us. Let's go to him right now. We've talked about the fight, Rob.
Enemy of Cook and Cassius, Ricky Graville.
Bury the weak territory. Don't worry, Rob. We're going there later. Don't worry about that. Matty mentioned the rematch. There should be no rematch. Spence needs to retire. We don't need to see that again. That will be a disingenuous fooling of the public. Another chance to cash out. Spence shouldn't be in the ring again, in my opinion, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm feeling particularly vindicated now. I know I didn't get much chance to get into it last week because it was fucking steaming and I turned up late to the pod, so I never got a chance to give my full breakdown. But I think it was like something like Spence is a good fighter and Bud Crawford's a special fighter who's going to beat him up and stop him.
2 minutes, 36 seconds you spoke for about that, Rob. I couldn't believe it when I was editing it afterwards. Sorry.
But the point stood. I always knew, and like people always talk about like resumes these days. It's resume this, resume that. Like we know what the crack was with Bud Crawford, like, right? And I just want to say, like, the amount of shit that guy's had to overcome to get to the top of the mountain is fucking unbelievable. He's gone away to Scotland to win his world title. First of all, beat Ricky Burns, right? Nobody never really beat Ricky Burns on this side of the pond. Beat Ricky Burns, then goes up, unifies at 40. Everyone's like, can he go? When everyone had high hopes for him when he was knocking out in Dongo and giving him massive credit. Then he moved up to 47. He signed with renewed his contract with Top Rank, and people start viewing him as a race trader because he signed with fucking Bob Arum instead of Al Heyman. And because of that, you had this stream of fucking people, Americans who should be by right supporting Bud Crawford, out against him, and pro Charlo, pro Spence. So he's had people fucking nitpicking his career. Then obviously when he signs with Arum, PBC tried to freeze him out. They tried to freeze him out and wait on him and wait him out and make him go old. They, kept the title in between Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, up these guys for fucking Spence. Talk about resumes and fucking hand-fed guys or whatever, hand-picked guys. Spence was fucking, they did the old WBO treatment on those world titles at the PBC, and they kept it in-house. They froze Bud out. They didn't have him on the graphics. The writers fucking constantly overlooked him as pound for pound number one in the sport for the likes of fucking Lomachenko and Canelo and all these guys, and he's never fucking thought of. But the eye test, I fucking knew as soon as he got out of Spence, he was going to dog him. And there was over the years, when it was, we're thinking it's getting past the sell-by date, or maybe I might have had thoughts that Spence was too big. But in the recent history, when was the last time you seen Bud Crawford lose a round? He might have lost round one last night while he was adjusting, and maybe Porter took a round off him.
I think though in hindsight as well, Rob, rather than Spence pushing him back, I think that we can say that he was doing what he wanted. He stepped back in those
Yeah,
rounds
he's
that
probably
he
taking
lost.
a look at him. He's probably taking a look at him. But when like the talk, there's so much fucking cliche and boxer size Ben talk now in the wake of all this, and everybody's a fucking a boxing tape expert and a footage expert, and you're going to see these YouTube breakdowns and all. But just quickly, the IQ of the guy to be going back to the ropes and throw that shot so precisely, so short, turn his hands over at just the right time and catch Spence. Spence didn't know what hit him in the second round. He's looking back up at the can.
He punched
couldn't
away
believe where the
Spence at
punch
the
came
time,
from.
didn't he? He
And
punched
he's
away
hitting him with,
Spence.
yeah, you're right. Double hooks. He's hitting him with double hooks.
And the
Similar
jab
to Inoue
alone,
with
he could easily have won that fight on the jab. The way he was landing it as well. I mean, it wasn't just a jab. It was sharp. It was thudding, literally causing
broke him up.
Spence severe problems. And he even staggered Spence. I'm sure with a jab at one point, possibly the seventh. I think
the second round he dropped him with the jab. That was, I mean, it was the left is what did the damage really, but
it was the right
jab
hand that
followed
opened
him
the back
down.
end.
Right-handed, turn the right-handed too.
Yeah, but some of those shots were like short, crisp. You know, they weren't traveling any more than like 8 to 10 inches. Some of those punches.
There's the other thing about how special that performance is. He's a naturally orthodox fighter, right? He just took on the fucking best southpaw welterweight since Manny Pacquiao and dominated him at southpaw. But he's not right. He's as good and he's the best switch hitter since Hagler. He's probably better switch hitter than Hagler. Like I can't speak highly enough about Bud Crawford and the things he's capable of, and the adjustments that he makes on the fly in the fight. It's going to take a very, very special fighter to beat him. I don't think Boots Ennis is good. Keith Thurman's opening his mouth. He should shut the fuck up and go back up to Kathmandu, not to disrespect the fighter or whatever, but he has fucking no chance of beating Bud Crawford. He beat the living. That'll be worse. That'll be a worse walk down.
I ran into one time when I was out walking. Donnie and I got a picture with him.
Yeah, I saw it on both your feeds. It was like 2-time Thurman. My old nickname. I was but I did have a kind of premonition about. I met up with Don McNamara, a friend of the pod this week. He was popping through Wexford. Great guy, by the way. He has the fucking voice of an 85-year-old Kevin McAleary. He's actually a cherub face, baby face, young lad. Really fucking surprised me when I met him. He looked totally different than he sounded, but really nice kid. And we were having a chat, and I was just saying to him about the facial damage to Spence. I saw him talk on Twitter before to somebody, back to one of his supporters, about, like, I can't keep doing these camps. Like, you don't know what the fucking toll this is taking. And then there was that thing with Ugas where he turned away in the fight, and he says he felt like the dental implants were after falling out. I was like, this guy's not going to take punches off Bud Crawford all night to the face. You're fucking joking me. He's going to beat him up and stop him. So, no, I'm a big fan of Spence too, by the way. You know, remember 6 years ago I was calling Spence to beat Brook. Always liked him, but just the eye test on the two of them, I think Crawford just has more. And more than anyone at 54 as well. Fuck it. If he's not going to retire now, let him go up to 54 and have Charlo. By the way, what fighter? And I hate this fucking recency thing when we go Floyd, but we can go eye test as well. Is there any, at 47, is there any opponent that Floyd beat at 47 that Bud Crawford wouldn't have beat and probably stopped? You have to have a think about it. Like, you know what I mean?
He would have beat
There's
Pacquiao.
Canelo
He would have absolutely beat
Cotto,
Pacquiao.
Yeah. So I think, like, let's let Bud Crawford stand alone and stop let him have his moment and stop comparing him to fucking people that gone by. Enjoy him while he's here. It's taken him this long to get here, 35. A lot of people, he's probably past his prime as it is and still went and done that. And when was the last time two elite guys, like elite guys, met like that, and the other one fucking dominated one like that, where Spence literally didn't have a moment in that fight. I think he came back in the third round. He might have caught him with a wide winging kind of left hand. But other than that, he didn't win a second of the fight. He got the living shit beaten out of him. And the fight probably could have been stopped or pulled out 2 rounds earlier. Viva Bud Crawford, fucking, he had him and his mom and all that were dancing. And just some certain shit in the build-up was amazing. Like Derek James saying, don't bring your dancing shoes tonight, mama. Like, I don't know why people try to trash talk Crawford, the guy in the fucking crowd who was saying he was going to get broken and all. Like, it's like you're adding fuel to the fire. And he's entertaining Bud. Like, he's fucking got the second longest fucking knockout streak in boxing behind Baturbiev. Like, and he's not even known as a one-punch knockout artist. That'll tell you how fucking good he is, because people jack it or he breaks him down. Like, brilliant fighter. Delighted that he got his moment. Delighted that the fight happened. Delighted that it delivered. And I really thought that was a nice moment at the two of them at the weigh-in as well, where they just when Spence said to him, "Thank you for making this fight," and they shook hands. That's what it's all about. Like,
they were classy, man. I dug that. I thought, they had their
and I
moments,
like Spence
getting
too.
heated,
He's not
but
making excuses.
God.
Spence making no excuses. He's giving him all the credit. People are suggesting now, these fucking bangers that don't know shit about boxing but have Twitter accounts that are out now saying, "Oh, Bud had loaded gloves," or he wrapped his own hands. His hands watched the wraps, or Spence was weight trained, or Bud's on the juice. Fuck all that shit. Spence said, "I'm a grown man. I made the weight. All credit to the champion." So I think we should say that too. But
you can't get hit by someone who is
enough
that
for that
accurate.
fight and Bud.
You can't get hit by
Exactly,
someone
and
who
it's
is
happening.
that
But in
accurate.
that level of a fight, like for an undisputed fight, undisputed guy, he's fighting a guy with holds fucking 3 belts, and he's landing like 60% of his power shots. He's hitting him whenever he fucking wanted. Unbelievable.
Those stats were nuts.
Well, I
couldn't tell from up there just how many he was landed, but he was just constantly moving him. And the best thing about him, Rob, that I love is that Bud just uses punches to get you into a position for another punch. He always has something in mind. Like you're talking chess players, how many moves ahead are you? 2, 3 moves ahead of the opponent. Bud's 4 or 5 moves ahead of the opponent. I'm going to throw this and get you into this. Then you're going to do this, and I'm going to pop you again, move you back straight up, and then down to the bottom. I mean, and it's all just lightning quick embedded in him. I mean, this guy eats, sleeps, drinks boxing. He is the ultimate fucking fighter of his lifetime.
There was a stat. I don't know what round it was. Like, we never put the stock on them, but it's an interesting one as well. At the same time, if it's true, Bud at one point in the fight had landed 58% of his power shots. At the same time, Spence had only landed 58 punches in total.
It was like 4th round or something.
Yeah, it was. That's a frightening stat if that's true.
Yeah, it's different, and like Dom, he's different because I call him Dom McNamara. It's actually Dom Henry, so he's different Dom, big bad Dom, the Dominator. Anyway,
I haven't heard. Yeah, the dominated exactly, dominatrix. I haven't heard from Dom McNamara in a while. Hopefully, he's okay if he's listening.
It's funny, like, because I met him in a pub in Wexford, like in the middle of the fucking daytime, like, right, and I was trying to fucking run around and might get the little one mind, and I'll get down to his pissing rain. I told him meet me in a fucking place, Costa, it was closed, and then he had to go meet me in a bar, and so I'm in anyway, and he's chatting away, and like there's only two other people in the bar, and I goes to him, geez, you look a lot different than you sound. And then I thought, that sounds sketchy. Like, it sounds like we're on a fucking Tinder date. And I was like, we're not on a Tinder date, by the way. You just want to talk boxing. That's fucking, that's not what this is. Everybody settle down.
Oh dear, yes. It's taken a long time for him to get here. Enjoy him while he's here. Rob Kelly talking about Crawford, but we could be talking about Rob Kelly. He's here at 8:30 on a Sunday evening. We're glad to have him as well.
That's how you know the fight is good, if I'm here this early. Like,
he's doing his best. We had a super chat from Ted come in. Before we get to that, I want to just go through the training situation. MB says Spence kept on reaching in and getting countered. His feet were all over. Timing was off. Poor preparation. A few people have been going in on Derek James. Des, first of all, not really going in on him so much, but he said this earlier on. He said, I was very disappointed in Derek James. I didn't like his out-of-character insults with Bomac and getting caught up with Crawford fans fight week. On the night, I thought from the second round, he failed to make any adjustments when it was clear to all in the chat and the commentary team on PBC that Errol isn't strong enough on the inside and the Bud jab was taking his legs away. Something I noticed in the end of round 8, when Errol was in deep water, a ring official was on the apron and started talking to someone outside, and James got completely distracted, stopped delivering instructions to his fighter and took a moment off. It was caught on the PBC broadcast. I'm genuinely not kicking a man when he's down, but I wasn't impressed with AJ against Franklin. Thought Martin was flat a few weeks back, and last night was the most one-dimensional performance without changes or adjustments in a fight that had established a pattern very early. You could argue this was the first real fight Errol has found himself in. Was James good enough on the night? By the way, none of this changes the result, but at this level, details are crucial, and you expect everyone to be firing on all cylinders. Excellent comment from Dares, who boxed himself back in the day. He knows his shit, Andy. Also, Antonio Tarver, very quickly, let me just play this, has also had his say. 40-second clip that's been doing the rounds. Let me play it for everybody at home. Shout out to, I think it was Seconds Out or something. We'll probably get a copyright strike for this, actually. I'll play it anyway, and we'll see what happens.
They crowning these guys trainers of the year and all this stuff, but we don't. What are we? Come on, bruh. This man wasn't prepared for no Terence Bud Crawford tonight, and the trainer got to take some flack for that. It's his responsibility too to have his fighter ready. Man ain't had nothing about no defense, no head movement, no feints. Didn't have his hands up, feet all everywhere, bruh. Where's the lessons? You know, And so I've been out here campaigning as a trainer, and I predicted the whole fight. Go look at Tarver's tape, bro. I know boxing, and they won't let me help these guys.
Anthony Josh was in safe hands by the sounds of it.
What's the next
You
one?
know-
Frank Martin was mentioned just before I forget. Sorry, Matty. He said a similar thing, didn't he, a couple of weeks ago? And do you remember how at Union in the post fight
Yeah.
just felt off? I just felt like my timing wasn't there. Could be a coincidence, but it's the same gym.
Could be
Steve,
too many.
I said exactly. I asked you guys exactly last week. Do you think that Derek James has too much going on to properly give attention to this fight?
Could be.
I asked specifically.
That could be.
It's
legit.
But
a combination
James
of
would
things, though,
shoot.
isn't it? Like,
Surely they've been knowing it's coming for years, though. It's not.
Or
just
maybe
been
just
the last few weeks.
took the eye off the ball a wee bit.
Yes,
maybe
possibly,
getting
possibly.
a bit drunk on his success a wee bit maybe.
well, Spence is his flagship fighter and involved in the fucking biggest fight in the sport. Like, you think they'd be prepared. I think a lot of the time the guy who just wins trainer of the year falls apart quickly in their next few fights. It happened to fucking Robert Garcia, Joe Gallagher, you name it. Like, I don't put too much stock into that trainer of the year thing. I think fellas can go on a hot streak and it gets, and sometimes they have guys that are fucking, you know, as what you call it, John Fury, who everyone knows I'm a huge fan of. So it's easy to train a racehorse, isn't it? Sometimes, like, so he had a few racehorses in that stable. Like, it's not that difficult, but that's not diminishing the man in any way. I just think, what the fuck was he going to tell Spence to do last night? That would have adjusted to.
He was trying to
that
tell
way,
him
I
the
just
right
think-
things. He kept saying, he seemed exasperated. Like, what are you doing? You're going back in straight lines. You're dipping. Why are you not stepping round him? Like, he couldn't understand what was going on. It was like, Spence, sorry, Matty.
Well, Crawford creates some of that himself. And I mean, Rob, what I think about, and I think you and I are very much on the same frame of mind when it comes to Crawford, is, all right, so you're training your fighter to fight Bud Crawford. Which Bud Crawford? Southpaw Crawford? Orthodox Crawford? Coming forward Crawford? Counterpunching Crawford? His headshots? His body shots? He's literally, since he put him down with a jab now, has dropped fighters with every punch in the book. What are you preparing for? How do you prepare to face greatness?
Well, Andy, what do you think?
You're asking me how to handle greatness.
How do you prepare for- I get what Matty's
Yeah, ask
saying.
the
It's like putting Bud onto a completely like esoteric level. But surely they must have, he must have sparred forward people, sparred southpaws. He must have had some semblance of an idea. He was doing amateurish things, and they look like Lamont Peterson 2.0.
But Bud picks when he does it all. He doesn't let you dictate it. He picks when he fights and what style he wants to fight when he wants to do it. He dictates the fucking terms.
True.
I think that it was obvious he was going to come out southpaw though. They should have at least been prepared for that. That was one of the most fucking obvious things.
There's an element of Spence's stupidity or lack of preparation or whatever it was as well in there, Andy. That's where we're trying to find where one starts and the other one begins.
Well, I take the point as well. I mean, what is he now at this point, Spence? I mean, he's all the fighters he's ever going to be, isn't he? James, his own stable. Maybe it was more about the camp, about trying to make the weight as well. Even though he's not using that as a main excuse. But I was just wondering if you could pull up Dez's general points again. I could maybe go through some of it or whatever and that, because I agreed with quite a lot of what he was saying there.
He does have sharp boxing mind. He really does.
Oh, Des knows his shit, man. We get this on a daily basis in the Boxing Nutters chat. I'll be embarrassing him now, but he's due the praise.
Yeah, so just when I read the bit about what he was stating about the part of round 8 and the ring official and that took my mind back to the point that the doctor got in the ring very early in that fight. It was about the 5th round, I think it was. I was just wondering what.
Yeah, it was strange. It was like I thought, whoa, what's going on here? This is a bit early. But I mean, and Derek James showed no inclinations to stop the fight.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't think even the ref, because it looked like the doctor was standing. He wasn't even in the corner as such. He was standing kind of a bit over the side of the ring.
If they called him in to get a bit of a respite, Andy, to extend the end of the round, before the next round started, maybe. Possibly,
but you just wonder what's maybe been said pre-fight or what's he seen during the fight that's maybe got him up there that early. Maybe it's because, I mean, even after that first knockdown, when you see him get up, if he's actually got his back to you at the camera. His legs are definitely wobbly. And as you mentioned, as Dave mentioned there, was it BBC that Errol wasn't strong enough on the inside and Bud's jab was taking his legs away. Yeah, absolutely. But it was like every solid punch that Crawford landed seemed to shake Spence right down to the ground. He was either off balance, he was getting his head snapped back, he just didn't know how. his initial response to getting hit, as I mentioned last week, was the pride and the ego, was to go right back at it, but he wasn't doubling up the jab, and that's what Crawford was doing. Crawford was finding a place for the jab constantly, head and body. He was tightening up his shots. He was punching with Spence. That's how he got that. I mean, as Rob mentioned it as well, to step off Spence like that, drag him to the ropes as such, and counter him, using his own momentum against him, and then countering him during at the same time as that guy's punching. It's just impossible as to how great and the speed of timing that is. It's just incredible. I really don't know what you could tell Spence about the 5th and 6th round, because, as I say, he's running about the 7th. Well, after the 7th especially, you really are questioning, does he need to go out for the 8th and 9th?
Did Derek James realise that? Did he realise Spence was getting the shit beaten out of him and he could not stand up straight? Do you think he knew?
They'd be seeing it. Everybody else was seeing it. Everybody else was seeing it. But I could not believe it when he got knocked down the first time, but I was a wee bit more stunned when I actually seen the stadium when he got up. And as I mentioned as well, I mean, his face, the contortion in his face after even the 4th round, the eyes looked like they were trying to shut up, but his nose was bleeding, puffiness to brew about the lips. The lips were beginning to go that red way they do once he start getting punched. He had no answers, and I don't really know what else you can do bar saying, look, run it again at a higher weight, and if he loses again, then you just know that Crawford is the far superior man, come hell or high water, and health and weights, that type of thing. Because some people will hang on to it, that the fact is it was at 147 and they cram himself down and all that type of stuff. But that detracts for Crawford's greatness and that as well. But I don't see how it can change at 154. I don't see any fighter at 54 who might even do better. I don't see Zoo doing any better. I don't see Charlo doing any better.
I'll tell you, guys,
the sheer strength of the guy. I mean, I think even at one time when they did come to a clinch, Crawford was never phased. He never looked out of breath. Never looked stressed. That was the thing. Spence was stressed about everything he was doing. Fucking Crawford looked like
finished the fight without a scratch on his face as well, by the way.
He was fighting my cigar in his mouth. All he had to do was just pour me a brandy and I'll get it between rounds, mate. That's all I got to do. Just hold my spit bucket for me. I'll be back in 3 minutes. It was just something else. I really don't know what you could have told Spence to do differently, rather than double up the jab, which is the key fundamental, man. And that's what we'll talk about Inoue in a little bit, but Crawford and Inoue they could have won that fight easily on their jabs alone. And that's what Spence would need to have worked up on, was the fact that his right hand, which his jab hand, was too low. It was getting countered over the top of him. When he stepped in with the left hand, he was getting caught in the middle of that as well. His timing was off. His feet work was awful. The amount of times he was getting spun at the side and he was jabbing, trying to catch Crawford as he moved. I posted up a still of it actually on Twitter there. Actually, it was amazing how the speed, because that was one of the times that Spence threw a double jab, never landed. I think Crawford parried one, and then the second one was hitting fucking Rose Ed, because by that time Crawford had spun off to the side. It was just everything about it, just speed, timing, foot movement. Even the times he was taking a couple of punches and that, he wasn't phased. Just was not phased.
The fact that he was out of the ring mid knockdown, calling out Charlo, tells you a lot about his personality. He's such a mean and spiteful character. Like, they might have shook hands at the weigh-in and all that. Like, and you're trying not to get into these fucking reading into their behavior and all that. Because I'm looking at it on fucking YouTube. I'm in Vegas to fucking get a look on these guys. Like, but people were making a lot of Spence turning away first, and then the clips came out, and he always does that. And he was like, "I'm not trying to look into N-word's eyes for an hour," which is fucking hilarious. I thought, like, but even the fact that they said that Spence stuck around with the reporters for like an hour after the weigh-in. Crawford didn't speak to one soul. Crawford, you could see he was starting to get, even though he was trying to keep a lid on things between the families, like, he still had that remark when he was like, "You're showing out like a female." To me, that was like, he's ready to fucking, like, he is ready to go. He's in a bad mood for making weight, and this fella's just said the wrong thing to him at the wrong time, and he's just about to turn. Spence was on Twitter like the day before, like, up until a couple of hours before, it wasn't a word out of Crawford. Like, his sister was doing the talking. So I just think he's just a born fighter, isn't he? Like, and a born bad bastard. Like, and I agree with Andy. I don't see anyone at 54 giving him a tough time. Who? He fucking killed Tim Tszyu. You joking me? Tim Tszyu? What would he do with Bud Crawford? He fucking be a punchbag for him. And that's no fucking, I don't care if he's big or not. Like, I just can't see I can't see him. I would love him to see him go up to 54 and beat Charlo. But if he retired now, I'd have no complaints because, like I said, he's had it all against him his whole career, and he's vindicated now. Like he will go down as a Hall of Famer for me. So
I have an odd curiosity, Rob, to see Stan Jonas against him.
I'd destroy Stan Jonas. He'd bust his face to pieces.
Yeah, I'd like to see that jab work. I ultimately think Bud would time his jab and he'd find something over the top.
Destroy him.
But I do think Stan Jonas is an interesting challenge.
Boots, maybe, but not Stan.
There's a guy we're forgetting at 147 who wants all the smoke. All the world champions.
Mr. Legality.
Aye, Mr. Legalities. Aye, Mr. Not Cleared Yet. Aye, Boots Ennis next. Nah, baby, let's get Crawford.
Yeah, Rob, Don McNamara's turned up in the chat for you.
It's a week. It's a week for the dominators between Don McNamara, Dom Henry, and domination by Bud Crawford.
It's a true story that by big up Ricky Burns, one of the very few to go the distance with with Bud Crawford.
Is he the last guy? Is he the last guy to go the distance with him?
Possibly.
There was Postol.
Absolutely. Yeah, by the way, just me talking about like some of Spence's harder fights now. See, you got to factor in that Porter fight. How hard a fight did Porter give Spence? I mean, that was tough inside fighting.
Porter hung it up
by both guys.
Porter hung it up too early.
Aye, possibly. I would agree with that. But
he pushed them all the way, though, didn't he? Like he pushed them all the way.
He gave more the trouble, right? And he did give Crawford trouble as well. But when it came down to the fact is when it says, right, it's time to get to work, time to do the business, and flip the script. Like you just said, Rob, be that bad bastard. I need you to turn the goods right now. You can go there and do that. And probably Steve asked one of the points like very early in the show when he says, what took him so long? I don't know, really. To be fair, I mean, he could have stepped up whenever he wanted. Maybe he had the money on the ninth round. Who knows?
I think it was a respect for Spence, wasn't it?
He did. Seventh round afterwards.
He said after the fight that he didn't feel his power, but I felt at the start of the third round that Spence did catch him with a big shot, and you could see for the first time, whatever vantage point the camera was at, you could see Bud's legs kind of stiffen a little bit and come together, which you never really see. Now, he disguised it well. He had a high guard and he kind of moved off the ropes, but I think he didn't want to get careless. Like, I think he was hitting him that often that it was probably finding it too easy, that way. Like, and it was just like systematically break him down. But when you see him catch him in the ninth and then he sticks his tongue out at him in the middle, like as if to say, whoa, I have you now, you fucker, you're not getting off the hook. But everything about it, even the M&M walkout and all that, like, fucking fantastic. Like, the way that came together, and like, if you'd that could have gone so wrong. He could have been memed to death today, like, because all Black Twitter was like, oh no, not mom spaghetti, here we go.
I thought he'd done the right thing there, actually. Rather than make him the focal point and the attention, he just says, right, all the best, bud, on you go, and he slips away off into the crowd and that to his seat. Yeah, I thought that was quite cool, because rather, as I say, because he would need to have went to the ring in its entirety and then keep it going, that type of thing. I thought we'd done all right, to be fair.
I also like that he didn't do that fucking bullshit where people rap over their own fucking vocal track. Like, how the fuck can they not pull the vocals from these tracks when these guys are going to the ring? So Eminem didn't even fucking do it. He just let the fucking track play and wandered off. There you go.
Who would you have play you out, Matty, if you were a high class performer?
If I was a boxer, who would I have bring me out to the ring?
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know, man. If I was gonna do some fucking rap, man, I might actually go like fucking Yellow Wolf. I don't know.
John Cena or something like that.
Yellow Wolf.
Roy Jones.
Oh, dude, come on, dude. Oh, yeah, dude. That album that Eminem produced got fucking 4.5 mics. Fuck off. But anyways, that's a different fucking podcast, right, Rob? But I think it would actually be funny to come out to some fucking hillbilly shit. Fucking, I don't know, some fucking like Jason Boland and the Stragglers blowing through the hills, something like that.
Some fucking someone, you know what? Fucking Paulie Malignaggi dropped the ball, didn't he? Should have come out to like some fucking Paul Anka over the years or something, some real Italian crooner shit. Put your head on my shoulder.
Well, look at Katie Taylor's entrance. That went down like a lead balloon, didn't it?
What was that the last time? What did she come
I don't know. It was like some like religious sort of slow thing. And
B-Hop was coming out to My Way for the last few fights of his career, if I recollect.
That's right. That was great, actually. That was brilliant when he did that. He actually had someone do like a fucking Jamaican style dub where they redone the lyrics and fucking like the My Way song was all about Hopkins. I'd love to see if anyone has a copy of that, actually. That was that was against Pascal, wasn't it? He had the ski mask and that.
Yeah, the alien become the alien, didn't they, towards the end and all that. Right. We've got a few super chatters. First of all, Josh Ford says Burns, Postol, and Beltran are the only guys to go 12 with Bud in title fights. Captain Casual, that's Damo, threw in 9.99. Shout out to him. He said he might have been proper hardcore last night and won with the bookies in the early hours. But here's a small contribution towards Matt Butters getting his bloody email address fixed. Shout out to Matt Butters. He's hanging around in the chat as well. One for you, Matty, from Teddy Boy 94. This is a friend of us, Ted Barrett, throwing in 4.99. He says, with this all-time great coming out party for Crawford this weekend, can we hear about Matty's night out with the boxing newsboys?
So yeah, I
Oof.
can actually talk. I will actually talk about the boxing news, boys. The rest of the trip I will not discuss. The boxing news, the boxing news boys were great, and I'm obviously going to forget names, but Ben and Rob I can remember off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. Elliot maybe was the other guy. I'm missing one for sure though. I do apologize. And we got to sit down in the Aria. Bullshit about boxing and just a little, just a little bit of UK US banner kind of stuff too, and wandered around and headed up to the blackjack tables over at the Cosmopolitan, and Rob and I played a little over there. I started I put 100 on the table, walked away with 750. It was a
£7.50?
750. Yeah, $100 on the table, walked away with $750. Yeah, I also want to parlay this weekend too. I don't want to spoil because those fights are going to come up next, but yeah, I'll finish that off. One of the bets in the parlay was either fighter be knocked down in Crawford Spence plus 140, so that's basically 3-2, I think. But those, and then we wandered on over to the Bellagio and hung out by the fountain for a few. Great bunch of guys. They're doing everything they can to put in the work to cover these fights. Coming to the U.S., they were in Mexico for Canelo, and be sure to support them because they're doing some great on the work ground and doing boxing journalism, old school style, with the modern flair. Just a fantastic group of guys. Had a great time with them. It's a shame that Donnie didn't get to hang out with us for that, but it was a hell of a good time, and I hope to see you guys again for sure.
Yeah, emotional stuff from Matty there. Shout out to Ronnie Hussein. He says, got my order in for the new merch. Not really sure what merch he's talking about, but hopefully he'll show us, send us a photo whenever he gets that done. We have a shout out to the chat very shortly. Before we do so, we had a few questions. A couple of them are segueing into the Japanese stuff, so we'll save those from Danny Young and Marcus Bellinger. Take aims through this in. We talked about it earlier. He said, would anybody pick Terence Crawford to beat Mayweather and or Pacquiao? Obviously not the current versions. Of course, Matty.
Pacquiao didn't want that fight, didn't he?
I would pick Crawford to beat them both.
Pacquiao never wanted that fight.
No, that was 2017. I know Roach didn't fancy it either. What about Prime Pacquiao, Prime Mayweather against the version of Crawford we saw last night?
All right, so let's think. So let's go to even 140 maybe, because I think if Manny would have had one more fight at 140, it would have been interesting. Because I think he could have. I think that was his top weight for really having true power, rather than just a speed aspect. So I think at 140, still an interesting fight, but I would still favor Crawford. He has a lot of the tools that Mayweather had that troubled Pacquiao, but he also has incredible pop, and he does it as the larger man in this situation. I have no problems picking Crawford against Pacquiao. Against Mayweather, I am convinced that Bud would be able to get Floyd, trying to shoulder roll on the ropes, and he would work him into something. We know he could be hurt. Maidana, cracked him really good around, kind of the time when we'd be discussing them fighting possibly. So, yeah, I have no problem taking Bud over both of them. I'm here to tell you guys, I really think that Bud is going to end up being looked at as the best fighter of the last 25 years. I God honestly believe that.
Andy, as you mentioned, obviously Pacquiao fight was talked about, but that was a kind of diminished version of Pacquiao. Matty's mentioning 140 Pacquiao was sort of looking around De La Hoya, Hatton, Cotto sort of region, 2008, 2009. As for Floyd, I know this probably wasn't his peak, but for 140 performances, I equated his performance against Arturo Gatti, actually, against Inoue against Fulton. I know it was Gatti and he was there to be hit, but that night in 2005, Floyd was absolutely magnificent. He barely missed a shot all night.
Yeah, it was target practice against Gatti, and I'm just thinking about, there was Chop Chop Charlie was at 140 as well.
Yeah.
And you look at it. I mean, if you look at his one of our opponents, I mean, you look at like Judah. This is up at 147 now, of course. You've got Baldemir, De La Hoya, Hatton, Marquez. I think there's a question: how would like a Crawford Marquez fight have went? You know, so it's an interesting one as well. I don't know if
At the time
Marquez,
he was dragging Marquez up, wasn't he? Marquez, like he hadn't gone through his full big back feel out to 147.
and
fucking
Marquez could
stadium.
be notoriously slow starter and get picked off early.
Yeah.
I
Be
don't
a
know. I
hard
mean,
one.
I suppose it's one of these topics of conversation is going to crop up now, isn't it? Because obviously Crawford's now the face of the sport, or so to speak, amongst the hardcore at least. That, but you're going to make these type of comparisons. You know, he deserves his name, to be discussed. You know, especially in the top echelons of the sport. How would he do against the likes of Mayweather? It's a
Floyd
tough
always
fight.
found a way, didn't he?
He always did, but Southpaws always gave him problems. And you've got like Floyd could be cute on the inside. He could grapple. He could be dirty. He could forearm you. I want to see how that would compare with likes of Crawford and that as well, with his nous on the inside and how dirty he can be. I think it's one of these type of chess matches. It takes it to the streets a little bit and that as well as dog pound territory. I'm not going to say one way or the other that with the absolute certainty that Crawford would beat Floyd, because he says there's two great fighters, and Floyd at one point was, in terms of speed, defence, it was second to none at that time. So I'm not going to say that Floyd is going to get absolutely annihilated. It's one of these fights. It's a fight within a fight, because you've got wee fights in between it. You've got the then fight, and you've got the speed to deal with. You've got the power of Crawford, and you've got the timing of Crawford, timing of Floyd. So it's one of the chess matches that I think you could pick it either way. I think Manny, I think he would definitely. I mean, you're talking the speed of Manny at his prime. Was that Cotto?
So fast, wasn't he? Like David
He
Diaz
was
says,
rapid.
fast, so fucking fast. I thought Freddie was hitting me in there. Yeah, the infamous interview.
I remember that now, actually. David Diaz, poor man. I remember he got dropped right in his face today.
That's right.
That was an awful beating. That was at 135. Yeah.
Oh, his face was a mess.
I'll have to cut that one for the future. That was a good one.
Poor bugger, man. Yeah. So look, if Crawford can time the speed, manage attacks, like for example, when you saw him back off Spence here last night and just time that right hook for that, I think it was the second knockdown. I think if he could catch Manny coming in like Marquez caught him, I think Crawford gets to him somehow late. Again, no diminishing Manny anyway, but I think just with Floyd's technical abilities, it's a much harder fight. So yeah, I'll go with that now. But it's going to come up as general comparisons and that. But I like there's fighters on each of those resumes. I would love to kind of talk about Crawford fight, like Marquez that I mentioned there, Alvarez, Cotto, guys like that. Looking up. So about like a Prime Mosley, for example, great fighters. In the
Prime Mosley was lightweight. Well, I thought at lightweight he was fantastic, wasn't he, Mosley?
He wasn't, but I mean, he could punch. He had a good beard. That would have been actually that would have been a good fight. That honestly would have been a good fight.
Mm-hmm. Rob, do you have anything to throw in on Ames's question there before we move on?
I think it's a fucking. I'm guilty of this shit too. Like, because last night, as soon as he won, I was like, he would give Floyd a run for his money, wouldn't he? Like, I can't. I'm looking at these two, and there's not much between them. Like, and I know resume again. We're going to resumes, but I just go off what I can see, and I'm thinking to myself, like, anyone on that Showtime run, Bull Crawford would have beat him and probably stopped him. Maybe not stopped Maidana, but I think he would have stopped Robert Guerrero. I think he would have stopped that version of Cotto, Andre Berto. I think he would have stopped him. So I think like he might have looked better against some common opponents, but would that mean that he would beat Floyd? I don't know. But I don't know if Floyd ever fought a switch hitter who was just as good on either side.
Conor McGregor
would have been. a guy with a beard like Crawford, and again, you get recency bias in this because Tuesday afternoon Inoue was the number 1 pound for pound guy in the sport, and then Saturday Bud Crawford's the number 1 pound for pound guy. Now for me, it is Bud, but boxing is so subjective, so fickle. There's so much recency bias. For me, the fucking Floyd one gets overplayed a bit because I don't think Floyd would have beaten Ray Leonard or Thomas Hearns because they were within my lifetime, that way. So I don't know, I think it'll be a very, very tight fight, and I wouldn't bet against Bud. I wouldn't bet against him winning, but at the same time, I could see a way that Floyd beats him. So would have been a fantastic fight. But again, it's like fucking waste of energy, isn't it? Because it's fucking never gonna happen. Not what thinking about.
We're good
Just
at
let us
wasting our
enjoy
energy, Rob.
Crawford,
Oh dear,
I haven't got much left, that way. I don't want to be wasting it. But yeah, no. Let us enjoy Crawford when he's here and have his moment.
Yeah, no, it's difficult because you think about when Crawford fought Floyd fought a fighter like Crawford, but then of course you got to take Crawford at his peak, and what we saw last night. It's difficult to trying to add those things up. Anyway, that's the discussion for that. We did a good solid hour.
Donnie made a good point actually when we were walking back. He said he thought he was going to be on here today. I don't know what the hell he's up to, but he said that beating. He said that beating for him was similar to Floyd against Corrales, and I'm like, that's actually a pretty fucking reasonable comparison.
That's not a bad one actually. Although Corrales wasn't going down as heavy, I don't think, Andy, and he didn't really have the shit beaten out of him quite as badly as Errol last night. I don't think on the whole. I know he went down 5 times, but
yeah, I think it was he was up. It was just a kind of more kind of sharp shooting the Floyd's punches, actually.
He was so accurate, wasn't he? He bounced up from a few of them, and at the end, he still wanted to carry on, but he wasn't as badly beaten. But yeah, that's a fair enough comparison.
Again, I'm repeating myself, but if you listen, if you go back and watch that fight, I'll just listen, even the response it gets. But sometimes when he landed that jab again there last night, Crawford, when you seen the actual visible reaction Spence to that jab, the crowd were like, "Ooh!" You literally fucking hear it just oohing in the arena. And see the power on that shot alone, it was just phenomenal, absolute phenomenal.
Right, boys, Matt Butters says, my mom is listening to the pod and wants to know when you'll be talking about the undercard, so we better get on Mrs. Butters there. We'll call her Marge, shall we?
Can I just say one thing before we go past that? Maximum credit to Errol Spence for even being able to fight at this level after that fucking car crash, because we all thought, how the fuck he even walked again after that? It didn't end up fucking paralyzed or completely retired after the car crash. Is a miracle, and to come back and fight at a high level and get a couple more world titles before losing to Crawford. I don't think there's any shame in that. That's a fucking. I think we can all agree he was a different fighter before the crash. But I think that we have to kind of give him a bit of credit for that, for even coming back to the ring after that crash.
No, absolutely, well said, Rob. Well said indeed. Andy, we'll go to you first of all then. I saw Isaac Cruz's win over Giovanni Cabrera. I thought Cabrera would cause him problems beforehand, but maybe wouldn't be hard enough a puncher to get him out of there, which proved to be the case. Didn't see the Donaire Santiago fight. I know a lot of the boys were going for Santiago. I went for Donaire, another L for me. I did see Ioannis Tellez knocking out Sergio Garcia. Sergio Garcia was complaining while getting the shit completely beaten out of him. We'll start with that one, and I suppose what on earth was going on there, I do not know.
Well, that was a great right hand by Tellez, and literally it's dropped Garcia like an accordion, but he's bounced back up my Jack in the Box literally, and he's like, "Oh, thank you," boom, hits him again, fucking flatlines him, and he gets up, he's complaining about it. He's like, "What happened to me there? What's going on here?" And then I think the follow up, mate, I think it's a right hand and it's followed up with our left hook or something. Absolutely just smashed the guy to bits, mate. So I think Ozzy was asking questions about him during the week because I don't think he knew much about him.
It was supposed to be Andy Jesus Ramos, I believe, who beat Joey Spencer. Was supposed to be going against Garcia, but he withdrew with a hand injury, and Tellez took the fight at 3 weeks' notice, maybe.
Well, I see he's got another fight arranged for a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, we were saying that on the Nutters call last night. He's fighting on the 26th of August, yeah.
Seems to be headlining that show as well, so it might be one of those, we call them next gen cards. So I want to keep an eye on.
Something, yeah.
I want to keep an eye on because I liked him. He certainly, he looked skilled enough, moved pretty well, and in the ending, that's what you want, isn't it? So that's what gets people talking. That's what kind of puts asses in the seats and gets some bigger opportunities. Now I'm just looking at his stats here at the minute. Some of these power shots, that 41%, his punches, 22% of his jabs. Yeah, I mean, look, everything to like about the guy in that as well. So I like to see him again. But that was some right hand though. Just the way you see Garcia popping back up like that.
He's raging at the ref. I'm like, what on earth are you complaining about?
He literally popped back up with your hands down, free shot, bang, and then literally, as I say, it's like he travelled in midair as he kind of fell backwards. It was phenomenal. What a shot that is!
And you got to give some serious credit to Telez there, because Sergio Garcia has gone the distance with Fundora, Tony Harrison as
good
well.
fighter.
Absolutely, and I mean, and people actually had him favored in that fight. That was after he had that showing against Fundora where he did well, and Harrison was coming off that lackluster draw against Brian Perella. Telez just an absolute. I thought the first couple rounds that Garcia was actually doing pretty good, pushing him back, making it uncomfortable, and then just out of nowhere, just bop, and went all downhill from him at that point in time. Really excited to see this kid come up. He was a slight underdog. He was paying dead even money, so it was very close to the books, basically even. So I mean, for a what was a 6-fight novice, hell of a good win right there. And he did help me to complete my parlay, Steve. Fine, it was a good weekend. So we had either fighter to be knocked down. We had Mr. Telez to win, and also Mr. Santiago to win, which broke my heart to do because I love Donaire.
That Telez win's going to be class. It's going to be at least mentioned in upset of the year, really. No.
I don't know what the thinking was there. The PBC are usually quite calculated. They brought him in thinking, although they made a mistake with Elvis Gomez, I suppose, the other week. But on paper, Andy, it's definitely an upset. But these Cubans get moved very fast, don't they? He's only had 5 fights. Gomez only had 6 or 7. Morel's only had 9. The fact they get moved so fast maybe indicates that they thought that this was coming.
Well, the thing is, as well, I only learned this last night, but you see, he started his pro career in Russia.
Yeah, that's right. He went to Russia as soon as he left Cuba. Sorry, yeah.
Defected, I don't know if it's defection or not, but then obviously he's managed to leave there just before COVID's hit, and then he hasn't fought for 2 years, so
must have been cold for him, wouldn't it? Like from Havana to friggin' the middle of St. Petersburg or wherever he was.
Okay, it'd be brutal, mate. Big, massive culture shock. Go at the right time as well, man. He could have got conscripted. He could have been in Ukrainian bog somewhere, you know. Christ. But look, there's a lot to like about him actually as well. I mean, he's 25 now. I think you're right. I think he will get fast track. As long as if he remains active, we'll just see what he's got booked anyway. I had his record there. Give me a second. So he's fighting 26th of August against Juan Gonzalez, 32-2, 32 knockouts from Venezuela, Panama.
Yeah, should beat him.
Went the distance with Magomed Kurbanov in Russia, 10 rounds.
Oh, must be sturdy enough then. Okay.
Knocked out Licker Ramos. I think he fought Juan Manuel Marquez. Seems to see if there are other names in his record here, mate. But no, but most of his fights has been in Venezuela, I think, by looks at. So the level opponent we don't know. So I think that could be an inflated record, to be fair.
We'll keep an eye on that one.
10 rounder anyway.
Yeah. We'll keep an eye on that one if I can. Do you think Telez was the story of the undercard from what you saw, really?
Yeah, I probably would say so. I mean, I only caught the last 5 rounds of the Cruz fight when I woke up and watched the fight live. So, it was. I suppose it was a bit. Cabrera, for what I saw of it, at least he was having these moments where he was boxing pretty well, but then Cruz had to kind of press on strong a little bit, but then he kind of faded in the stretch the last couple of rounds. Some were saying he was lucky enough to win that, so I'll leave it to other people to say. Maybe Matty.
All right, Matty was there. What do you think, Matty? I thought Cruz was a worthy winner, and he looks like he might be fighting Ryan Garcia. I liked his comment afterwards. He said, Cabrera was hugging me that much, I thought it was my birthday.
That's pretty good. I thought it was a really close fight. I thought that the judges had it 114, 113 either way were pretty much dead on. It was pretty close. I think Cruz kind of took over, like you give it around like kind of the 4th, and then he wavered 9th, 10th-ish. Cabrera having doing his best success with his right hand, working his jab, check hooking, turning around the corner, making Cruz chase after him a little bit without really running. It was actually pretty decent footwork early on, but then Cruz started timing that right hand, throwing his left over it, landing some good shots, cornering him, working to the body. And then he just kind of, didn't do much the last couple of rounds, and it almost cost him with that point deduction. in the middle there. Yeah, it's good that he was able to win that fight. A loss would have obviously taken the shine off of a potential Tank Davis rematch. We'll see where he goes from here. I don't know what you guys think, but for some reason, Cabrera kind of reminds me of Mauricio Herrera. I don't know.
Sorry, Matty.
No bad
You
level to
pulled
be
at
at, I
me.
suppose. No,
I
absolutely
pulled
bad
you. I
level.
was chatting away. Sorry, Andy, go on.
I was going to say it's no bad level to be at. Nobody can be a world champion, but don't know if Herrera was a champion, but he was always there, challenging at least.
He had some good wins. He had a W
Should have beat
against
Danny
Provodnikov.
Garcia.
Yeah,
Actually,
he got a few
mentioned it.
shaftings as well, didn't he?
Danny Garcia in Puerto Rico, remember? Clear as day robbery, that.
Yeah, his problem later on is I think he had problems with the bottle.
Oh, did
Remember,
he really?
that was classed
Yeah.
as Danny Garcia's homecoming, eh?
Didn't he beat Provodnikov?
He did.
He did, you know.
Aye, I think he did, aye.
Anything else from the undercard, Matty, before we move on?
I only got in for the Garcia fight, and Telez. So I just saw the main card. Anything prior to that I missed.